Jim Joyce.
It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday, and it's funny. I was just catching up with our dear friend Steve Sanchez, and he was like, "It's Wednesday. I look forward to the shot." But his beef with this whole thing is, I say Jim Joyce, and it just kind of rolls off the tongue. He's like, "How come Jim doesn't say Eugene Borowicz? It's Wednesday."
Borowicz, I love it. No, I gotta start doing.
Yeah.
Like
Get your practice on.
And were you ever called Gino?
No Gino, but I have had people call me Gene, and to me, Gene is a different name. Like my name is Eugene, right? Actually, for maybe some of the listeners / viewers, my real, the old USSR Ukrainian name is Yevgeny, which when my parents immigrated to US, we lived in a very Hispanic neighborhood. And so I went to register to school as a 13-year-old kid, right? And they're like, Yevgeny sounds like Eugenio, so you're Eugene. So there you go.
That's how it came about.
But a lot of Evgenys are Eugenes in US. So
okay, Eugeny. I like it, Eugeny.
Yeah. Actually, there's other people that just kind of kept that and went to short Yevi. I kind of actually like that, to be honest. I wish I might change it on you again.
Yeah, like I had a good cousin growing up, Gino, and he was a tough bastard. He was a lovely guy.
Well, I won't reminisce on my New York days, but there was a very Irish neighborhood above the very Spanish neighborhood in New York. So I used to hang out with lots of people up and down the Manhattan neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Man, I'm forgetting the name of it, but I'm sure people that are from New York will remind us. By the way, another week, another SPAC, Allied Baby Care. Yeah. So it's the.
I just got the prospectus over. Someone just sent it on to me. It was beautifully written.
I haven't read it, to be honest. I've looked at others, but not this one.
It's a phenomenal presentation and how they're thinking about it, and I don't know. I mean, I remember seeing the company. Do you know much about the company? I may have seen it, but I'm not an expert.
No, so I've interacted with some of the folks in the company back in the day, but not any time recent these days. I actually knew one of the earlier investors in the company, so I'm sure they're excited for the ticker symbol.
Just the guts of the marketplace right now is phenomenal, right? That people are just charging ahead. The way everyone, the way the world is investing, public markets are getting activated, like SPAC, and everyone's waiting for the crash on the other side, right? Is that the kind
of? Yeah, I mean, and today was another announcement of I think a 1.6 billion fund, Oak, right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
I've heard people are buying, like I was listening to my CNBC today. I heard people are buying houses in Florida, like 32 people are bidding on houses in Florida that they've never even seen. Like they're just buying them online because cash is so cheap.
That's awesome. Love it. 32 people though. I mean, I don't know. I'd pick other places too, but
I just heard it.
So I'm excited for today. I was actually trying to figure out if I can have virtual walk-in music for this amazing gentleman, but I think we're gonna have to do it in a different way. So joining us, the man of this hour at least or so, is Ritesh Patel.
I'm pumped about this.
Me too.
I needed a bit of music.
He's got a serious microphone he's got there, right, Jim?
It's phenomenal.
It's incredible. What the heck is that? Where'd you get it? Like the Death Star or something?
So this was Dan Kendall's recommendation, and I don't know if you heard me doing a little bop. I was trying to figure out how to through Zoom to play a little bit of welcome to the stage music for Ritesh Patel, and I even found your, hold on, where the hell is it? Your Sunday music that you spin. I was gonna play that, but I don't prepare for this. I'm sure as Jim doesn't. So
It's
Welcome.
all good, guys. It's all good. Thank you so much. Thank you. How are things going?
I was crushed that I missed you were doing the DJing at the Health Excel event, back when there was still some sunshine in Ireland, but they had me on some other ones, so I missed the whole DJ online event. How did that go?
It went well. We learned a lesson or two around that, which is it's difficult to have music going on and trying to have people also have a conversation, particularly because the sound and the way the Zoom thing works, whoever's got the sound going becomes the main person, right?
Right.
So if I'm playing music in the background, I'm the only one visible, even if everybody else is talking. And then you've got these flashes of little speaker things. So unless you keep it in gallery mode, but it was good. Yeah, we learned a bit. And I think Martin and Chandana were saying, well, maybe we'll do it again, but maybe not the way we decided.
They are tested. Before we get into your introduction, right, real quick, because we're on that topic. Robin, and I can never pronounce her last name, and she'll kick my ass for it. Fafarian, I think that's how you pronounce it, Robin.
That's right.
So, she invited me to one of those rooms where it's like it's a layout of a room. And you can literally like walk around and get closer to a corner. And so if you, Ritesh, were spinning there, you actually start hearing the music. But as you walk back and you can join other table. I was loving it. I just trying to find some more use cases, but there's a lot of innovation coming in there. But
StreamYard does the same thing as well.
I'll have to look it up. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm sure I'll tag Robin in this, and she'll say, "You butchered my last name,"
and you got
and
the
I'll
whole
say,
thing
"Welcome
wrong.
to the welcome to the club."
So I'm dying to hear your introduction.
Yes,
but we got to get into music right away. We got to go right into the music.
There you go. Well, I can certainly see what I can do. Hang on 1 second. If I have it, I may not have it on here. I've got a whole studio set up downstairs. Okay. So that's where I usually get all that stuff done. But if I can manage it, give me
I love how we're keeping our viewers and listeners on the edge to even introduce Ritesh.
Exactly. Like
the mystery.
Who the hell is that guy, and why is he?
DJ, digital health. I know when I was saying the music. Also, I was thinking. I just wanted to start talking music. Because music has been like it's kind of. I think it's saving me through this whole thing, man. It's kind of. But anyways, let's hear for our listeners, for our millions of Joe Rogan style listeners. Let's hear about Tesha's background. Introduce yourself. Sir.
So, Ritesh Patel, thank you for allowing me to join you today. I am the Chief Digital Officer at Ogilvy Consulting, which is the consulting arm of Ogilvy, but I also do a lot of work with Ogilvy Health, the agency where we're doing a lot of innovation work. I've been with Ogilvy 7 years now. It's coming up to 7 years. They've put up with me for that long. Hopefully, they'll put up with me for a bit longer.
Is it the same 7-year itch?
Yeah, who knows? They may have it, you can never tell. I do start to panic a little bit when you get the email of the CEO wants to talk to you urgently. And can you do it in 10 minutes? And then you go, okay, is this the time, right? Will the HR and legal person be on the call with me? That sort of thing. So,
but anyway, back to you. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's all good, Eugene. I've been in this mad industry since 2009. I joined healthcare. Literally, my first week, I was sent down to the FDA hearings down in DC, where they were doing the hearings on social media use, which is where I met Shwen, Brad Pendergraph, John Mack, Sally Church, Mark Monceau, and who I call the OGs of the original social media. John Pugh was there as well from BI, so that's basically me. I live in Montclair, New Jersey, which is an enclave of Park Slope, Brooklyn in New Jersey, because all of my neighbors are from Park Slope, Brooklyn. It seems to be go from New York to Brooklyn to Montclair, so. And I've been in America for 20 years. I grew up in Kenya, in East Africa, and then we moved to London when I was a boy, and I came here in the 80s, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, to seek my fame and fortune.
That's why, even though I've known you for years, when I listened to the Health Excel podcast that you were on, I mean, not that we've sort of covered your whole history when we've met, but like I had no idea that you were born in Kenya, right? Like it was like a fascinating fact.
It was it was interesting. And the more I think about it and remember those times, and it's crazy, you get those snippets of memories come through. And it's like when I was peeling a mango the other day just to make a mango shake. And that smell took me back to when I was a kid going to school. And we literally, if we're hungry, we'd just pick a mango off the closest mango tree we're walking past and peel it and eat it on the way to school, right?
Yeah.
So there's some smells and tastes and things that bring some memories back.
Right.
That's fascinating. And yeah, there you go. That's a great memory, right?
Have you been back to Kenya?
No, not at all. In fact, we have some cousins who were left there. I think they just retired and moved to Tanzania.
Okay.
But most everybody left and moved to London.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Here's the craziest thing. When you talk to fellow Indians here or anywhere in the world, they go like, how long have you been, when's the last time in India? I was like, I've only been to India once and it was for 7 days and that was it. And they're sort of, what? I'm like, because it was never home for me. London was home. India, I don't know anything about it. My parents probably, but not me. So,
yeah,
I haven't been back.
India, like, because I probably been to India more than 7 days. I probably been to like.
I've even seen pictures of you crashing a party of some sort, Jim. I think so.
Is this something we should know about, Jim? Like, wait, hold on, you crash parties?
No,
in
like this traditional outfit, like it was amazing.
Really?
Actually, I think I've even seen you like dancing at it or something.
Wow.
No, I'm a big India file, if that's such a thing in India.
Interesting. Amazing.
Well, I find that growing up, like, as the influence of Indian Americans, like I'm not Irish American, but I'm American Irish. So meaning I'm an American that's moved to Ireland. So the Irish Americans are famous, but the influence that, people descended from India, or whether they're first generation or second generation, on the US is just, you can't even calculate the impact on the sciences and engineering and industry. And it's just, they're just, and so you have this, the perception, culturally, this perception of a very, this, like the top of the top. I mean, just looking through, schools everywhere else. And then when you go to India, what's fascinating to me there is just the kind of the feeling you get at coming in, the gentleness of the people and the kindness, and you just feel this, and it's almost in their faces and how they look. Obviously, it's a cultural, you can't, I don't know the culture that well, but it's just a feeling. You just feel very welcome and very, you're walking through the street. So
yeah, my wife hates it. I cook for the neighbors and take them food. She said, "Why are you cooking for these people? What's wrong with you? Stop doing this. It's costing us a fortune." I'm like, I cook, but I cook too much, so I just like to give it to people who like food, right?
So speaking of food, so we sort of introduced you as this super duper DJ, and then you're talking about food, and I just salivate, like especially like towards the weekends when I see your Instagram account. I'm like, oh, he's at it again. I mean, it looks amazing.
Actually, Shwen does a better job than I do, I think, on weekends. I don't know.
All right,
Shwen does a better job.
Shwen is all like beautiful briskets and lots of meats and stuff, but I like your colored variety.
Thank you.
So but what's you also have a restaurant?
Yeah, so
I never got a chance to visit, unfortunately, but
well, we'll get there. Just opened a new one in Jersey City. We took over an Italian joint in Jersey City that's now been converted as well, called the Brick Lane Curry House. So there's 3 of them now. There's one in New York on 5th Street and 2nd Avenue, which is the original. It's been there for 20 years or so. But about 10 years ago, I got tired of crappy Indian food here in Montclair. And so there was a thing that was up for rent. I was walking past it, called the guy up and said, "Hey, I'd like to rent this place." Came home, Mrs. said, "You did what?" And then called Sati, who is the founder and owner of the Brick Lane in New York, and said, "Hey, how'd you like to have a restaurant in New Jersey?" And that's how we got going. So yeah, couple of side gigs, music and food for sure. And all
I
for
mean,
the
two
desire of
things,
bringing decent curry,
two things that bring people together, right?
Yeah.
Like food and music,
Yeah.
and your foray into digital health as far as like access and connecting people. I mean, this is all in the same train. I can see it.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing, I guess. Yeah, it was, I met Sati, who runs the one in New York 20 years ago, when I started a monthly curry club, because curry is ubiquitous in England, right? There's no town in England that doesn't have a local curry house.
Right.
So I come here, and every place I tried was useless. And there's a whole bunch of Brits. There's about 10 of us in Manhattan. We were like, we've got to find a decent place. So we tried place after place every month. And then we found this joint. It was on 6th Street, tucked away in a corner. And it was incredible. We were like, this is like home curry. Yay, we found the place. Right. And so every month, we used to get together, and word started to spread that there's this curry club going on where they found decent curry. We should join it. And so I started getting emails and all sorts of things. Yeah. And so that's how I met Sati, the owner of the Brick Lane. So that's what this is all about, Awesome. But again, getting people together over decent food. That's all it is. Right?
So you're able to cover 6 restaurants, this big job at Ogilvy, DJing, you're like Elon Musk.
And that's not all. I don't know if you know this, Jim. I don't know how I came across Ritesh. You and Kyle are also having a YouTube show with the OGs of social media, right? Am I correct?
Actually,
I watched 1 or 2 with Jeff Dachi's.
Yeah. It's the OGs of Web 1.0. So I came to America to come work for agency.com. Before that, I was head of IT for Le Méridien Hotels in England. So I was an IT guy running IT for hotel systems. And I'd hired a French company to build our website. And then we got acquired in a hostile takeover. So I had to call this guy in Paris and say, listen, I'm not your client anymore. These new guys have come in, meet so-and-so, they're going to pay you and they're going to take this over. And he replied, well, I don't really care either, because I've just sold my business to these Americans for a wad of money. And I'm going into the sunset and go hang out in Nice. So you should go call these guys. And so we got talking, and I came here and started working for agency.com, which... and it's a weekly show, and it all started again in similar fashion. One night, just like Eugene, we have chats now and again on WhatsApp or whatever. Kyle Shannon was one of the co-founders of agency.com, and he said, I'm getting old. I'm missing stories, or I'm having gaps. And people tell me I should write a book, but I've got ADHD. I can't write a book. So I said, well, why don't we just do a weekly show? We'll just grab people and tell their stories. Let's get them to tell the stories, and we'll archive it all. And he said, that's a great idea. Which you should have been there. That's what we should call it. Didn't think anything else of it, right? Because we'd had a couple of gin and tonics each side, right? About 3 weeks later, I get a WhatsApp. Hey, I've registered the URL. I've got a StreamYard account. I've got YouTube. I've got a website. I'm like, oh no.
Awesome.
So yeah, we started it. We have got episode 12. I think this week's going to be very cool, because we're interviewing Tom Watson, who was one of the originals at Omnicom, who invested in 1994. He was looking around and seeing these little startups that were starting to really kill the big agencies and taking a lot of digital work away from the big agencies. And so he started sniffing around and convinced John Wren at Omnicom that maybe we should look at this. This thing seems to be getting big. And that's how they started investing. So Tom Watson invested in agency.com, Razorfish, and Organic.
Okay.
And so the only people who made a lot of money in those days, Omnicom. They took all 3 companies public, made a fortune.
So tell a little bit about your practice, your Ogilvy digital health practice. Like, what are you working on? What's fascinating? What are you seeing?
So, last couple of years, when we started, it was mainly around pharma and helping pharma companies change, transform, use digital for marketing. Ogilvy, we were very clear. We wanted to stay very narrow on what we could own, which is brand, marketing, customer experience, transformation of that experience, that sort of thing. So how do you, as a brand, engage in this digital world? What do you do about your customers? How do you do commerce? That sort of stuff. So we have automotive, financial services, and healthcare as sort of big anchor, areas. And for pharma, it was really around, at that time, digital and social. What can you do, right? There's lots of companies playing, but nobody was really doing it from a scale.
Right.
And so we worked with a number of companies to scale them across the world on using social primarily initially.
Yeah.
Now, in the last year and a half, 2 years, it's really been about innovation. How do you innovate, right? What can you do to change the model? And that's when I ran into Eugene first, like real in-person conversation was in California. What was it at Startup Health, I think, Eugene, right?
Yeah, I feel like I've known you for like 30 years, dude.
Yeah, I know, right?
But I don't I do remember. I'm pretty sure it was in California.
Yeah, it was Startup Health.
Yeah,
yeah, Startup Health. And
all roads lead to JPM, right?
There you go. It was JPM and Startup
or Health
Health.
Excel event.
That's right. And we were talking then. It's all about, our clients were wrestling, and are still are wrestling with digital therapeutics. Is it a companion? Is it a beyond the pill? Is it a standalone business? Do we do that? How do we do it?
Where they at?
Yeah, exactly. Nowhere.
Oh boy, but there's more. Eugene, the host of this, runs a digital therapeutic podcast.
Exactly.
So like if you were to look at like in essence, kind of a pseudo anonymized way, so you don't have to like convey, what's the word? Protect the guilty. But in terms
of, there are some public ones, right? So look at J Labs and what Melinda Richter's done, right?
Yeah.
Great. Got the C-suite to invest, create these, J Labs organizations. Yep. I don't know what value it provides, how much of it has gone into J Labs. I'm not privy to any of that stuff, but I think that's a great model. It doesn't include the business though, because when you talk to the business guys within Janssen or Johnson & Johnson, they're all sort of disconnected because there's also the J&J Innovation Design Studios.
Okay.
Right. So do I go to the design studio or do I go to J Labs, or does J Labs bring something to me or that, right? You've got the Novartis Biome that was launched, our friend Shwen and Robin Roberts and those guys, and, Jacob LaPorte, who's done those. And again, very public. You can see it on the website and everything. And from what I can ascertain, it's around getting the combination of the business. And from conversations I've had with Shwen and Robin and people like that at last JPM, I think, Eugene, when we were 2020. Yeah, that was the last time we were traveling.
That's right.
January 2020. That's right. Yeah. It was it's a business user can go to the Biome and say, I have a thing I want to do, and the Biome will then be the facilitator of that. Do the workshop to really understand what the problem is. Go find a startup if there's one that's
there. What did Jacob call it? Because Jacob was on it. I think he called it like an off-ramp. On-ramp or off-ramp?
No, on-ramp. He called it an on-ramp. An on-ramp.
So
on-ramp. Yeah.
You want to try to make it more
unfortunately, it's always hard in all of these initiatives to find an off-ramp, right? But in general.
He was trying to make it more like Singapore than New Jersey.
There you go.
That's right. Exactly. That's right. Wow, dude. Amazing memory.
Why? What happened in Singapore? I want to know now. Forget that.
Just there's no traffic. There's no, like, I lived in New Jersey for a while. There's a few highways that kind of spinning around a little bit.
Oh yeah, don't get me started on the circles. We came from England. We're the originators of the roundabouts. People don't know how to use the circles here. It's crazy.
Yeah, so there's initiatives, but those are bold initiatives, right? They have C-suite attention.
Yeah.
They're being marketed well.
Yeah.
They have strong leaders inside them, right?
Yeah. And it was funny, commercial side of pharma, if we're talking pharma specifically, was doing a lot of this up until about a year and a half ago. I don't know what happened. And I think it's that natural, when commercial guys get good, they get promoted or rotated out to another country or do something, right? And then somebody else comes in and, oh no, I don't understand. Shut this down. Let's go back to what we were doing. whereby R&D was lagging, and now R&D in clinical has just zoomed ahead. AI, remote trials, remote patient management, real world evidence collection with remote devices, and the commercial guys are still trying to figure out how to do social media.
Right.
So,
right.
you know, how the pendulum turns, right?
Yeah,
But yeah,
listen,
no.
I'm writing a whole book and all that.
Oh, you are?
Which I'm
Excellent.
having a hard time on it, to be frank, with everybody who's watching, just to
but
keep it up.
I think I mean, it for me, that's a massive sign, right? Like I always say that when you think about pharmaceutical companies, you have to be inside the label. Like to be relevant, you have to be inside the clinical label. If you're outside the clinical label, you're irrelevant and you're fighting for, any kind of mind share. But if you're in pharma and you're inside the label, compliance, regulatory, clinical sales, everyone is going to line up to it. So the research guys embrace it and embed digital tools into the research effort, into the, whatever it is, the companioning, then it starts to get serious.
But do you really think so, James? Because here's why I sort of little disagree with this. And here's why. Until the pandemic, I would have said yes, right? And sorry, until the pandemic, I would have disagreed with you. Apologies. Because I remember having conversations in 2019 with brand marketers who were taking budget away from digital and putting it into the iPad and posters.
Right.
And you're like, it's 2019. Tell me how you consume content yourself personally. Oh, I get it on my phone. I use and I'm like, and now you're going to a poster. Yeah. Explain to me how this works, right? And the pandemic forced those changes, I think. So yeah. I think the issue is sometimes we hide very quickly behind medical, legal, and regulatory. They'll never allow us. We never go ask.
Right.
So how do you know? And then secondly, sometimes we err to what's safe because it's a timing issue is what I'm fascinated about. You get maybe 2 or 3 years, 4 years as a brand manager till you get moved to another brand or do something bigger or whatever. So you got year one, you have to do something. Your budget cycle starts in September. So October time, you've got to sort everything out. In November, you've got to submit it. And then January comes along and you've got 8 months to do something and you've got to go through the cycle again, right? So by year two, you're going, you know what? I've only got a couple more years. Let me just go back to what's safe and sound that works really well. I don't want to do anything innovative because I've got one more year of this. Yeah. And then I've got to go somewhere else, right?
And by the way, if I invest the same, I'm picking a random number, 100K into the posters and the known campaigns, while it might be, marginally less as an ROI, it's still pretty predictable versus Correct. Putting 100K into a startup relationship, right? So
correct. Right. Exactly.
And they're terrified. They spend so much of their time, in these medical, legal, regulatory.
Exactly.
It feels to me like until it reaches, well, so the exception to that in pharma, or in my view on it, and I've been outside of it for a while, they left me behind in Ireland, so I had to start up companies after I was in it. But the exception is, if you look at the tenure of a CEO, right, like in pharma, it's better than an NFL player. Like it's
That's
6,
right.
7, 8 years, right? Like
That's
it's not, so that's enough time to embrace, longer term thinking, right? And then they generally, you fight to get them out of the seat. They want to be in there for a while because they quite like the job and it pays very well. So, but if you go through the rest of the ranks, if you go through the rest of the commercial ranks, it's these NFL assignments. It's 2 years, 3 years, and that's just not enough time to kind of think long term, right?
Exactly. And the other thing is when you get promoted, so I can give you an example. 2010, we created a social media site for mothers with children with CF, because we figured out that when you're a new mother, you've never heard of this thing, and you're told by the doctor, your child has this, and the lifespan could be this.
Right.
Your world has just ended. You think you're the only one, right? So we created a site where we put mothers in touch with other mothers, but also their doctor. So the doctor could be there for them and keep holding their hands. Lovely. And it was a closed environment. You had to be invited. The doctor invited you and told you should come in and that sort of thing. And the pharma company wasn't involved. They just funded it. And it was sort of a non-profit thing. The lady who did that won all sorts of awards internally, We won a Clio Award for the best use of social media. Yes, I do have one of those somewhere around here. And then she got promoted. When the new person came in, the first thing they did was shut that down because they didn't understand it.
Right.
Right.
But not even that. It wasn't theirs, right?
Yeah.
They need to leave a mark behind, and that went with this woman, and it is what it is, right? Like it's
exactly.
But the R&D people, though, they're longer term players.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
They're longer term players. So that's just the nature in pharma, like the pipelines and everything so long term. So the longer term thinkers actually exist inside the R&D labs. You know,
That's
they
right.
exist on the commercial side.
That's right. So you see these ups and downs. You know, I talked to Shwen quite a bit about doing a similar show of the OGs of social media in pharma. And maybe that's what you guys should do next. Get 2 or 3 of those guys on and talk about those days, because I go to meetings sometimes and I'll go, wait, this is deja vu. And I'll dust off a presentation from 2010 and I'll give it. I won't change it. I'll just change the date on the title and I'll give that presentation. We'll go, wow, that's amazing. Right.
Yep.
So yeah, it ebbs and flows, I think. So, you know, it's interesting, right? But Jim, I do agree with you. I think the R&D guys are a lot longer term and they think long term as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's the market we're living in, right?
I gave this presentation once. I walked into a company and they'll remain
nameless. There you go. I did it for you.
There you go. Eugene, sometimes you got to help him because I think your whiskey is better than his. His looked white. So I think he's having
milk.
An Irish coffee.
He's drinking milk.
Drinking milk. Really?
Helps me sleep better. But I walked into a presentation. They said, listen, Jim, you know, we've heard you're involved in digital health tech and you have this company. And I said, can you give us an example of your implementation? And I described this beautiful implementation and how we built, you know, one of the largest examples of an injectable adherence tool and rolled it out to multiple countries. We have beautiful data and it's spanning there. And they were fascinated by it. They were like, this is phenomenal. We need something like this. You know, can you tell us the name of the company? And I'm like, yeah, it's your company. You know, and there was a team. There was a team of people. There was 10 people, all with digital health after their titles and launches in there. And I was telling them about it. They're like, "We've been looking for this. Where would we find it?"
But again, as much as I'm talking about this in the pharma space, this is really almost any large organization that gets beyond a certain size, right? There's innovation happens at the edges. There's innovation happens at the core. There's operations happen at the edges, and operations happen at the core. It's the nature of the beast, right? It's but yeah,
I have one. Sorry, Jim, go on, Jim.
The theme that Eugene wanted to ask you, which is like bringing the human back to health, right? That was the theme that you wanted to ask. So,
yes. Let me give you one more story, and then I think this is an important thing that we should talk about, particularly you two guys, because you've been doing this health tech thing for so long. What is that? Which one is it? Dude, you're killing me, man. You're killing me. Nice.
For the listeners, Glenn Livett 12.
Well done. You know, I think I'm gonna have to send you a Japanese one as a gift.
I've had it, so you know, but thank you. I won't say no.
I think you need to up your game a little bit. So we'll have to send you a Japanese one for these shows. Only for these shows, though. You can't drink it any other time. You just got to do it on camera. Okay.
To be frank, this is my only drinking night.
Okay.
This is it. This is when I do it. So anyway.
So I have I have 2 non-healthcare clients. One of them is a shipping company called Wallenius Wilhelmsen, based in Sweden. Family-owned business, 2 families, the Walleniuses and the Wilhelmsenses. Same issue. I worked with the CIO to help him create an internal digital accelerator, innovation group. It was him originally, just him, right? So me and him working for the CEO. And we came up with a couple of prototypes. We did a thing with Microsoft HoloLens. But you can imagine it's an old shipping company with processes that were developed, as the CEO says, in 1631, when the ships were going out, picking up trade and then bringing it back. Yeah. You know, there's lots and lots of paperwork, and they're going through the same thing. And then as we started looking around, we saw lighthouses of little projects all over the place at the edges, as you say, Eugene. You know, there was a guy on port operations. So they were the way it works is they ship primarily cars, right? So they work for the OEM. So as the car comes off the production line, a Wilhelmsen employee takes it over and makes sure it gets to the dealer. So they manage the end-to-end from the car leaving the production line to arriving at the dealer. So anything that's in between, they do it, right? The person who literally picks the car up is a Wilhelmsen person, puts it into the truck driver is a Wilhelmsen driver, they take it to the port, the container, the ship, the other end, the trailer, the dealer, right? And dropping it off. So there's port operations where they have to count the cars. There's guys with clipboards that were walking around. So one youngster said, why don't we use iPads and maybe a drone or something?
Right.
That's what they did. So these little innovations everywhere. Now, what used to take 3 days to count 300 cars in a clipboard and tack, these many Benzes, these many Toyotas, a drone does in 6 minutes.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Right?
Yeah. Listen, the people's creativity, right? And a little bit of the humans, right? I mean, if we think about kind of e-patient movements and things like that, bringing us as and actually like less and less, I'm actually liking that term of digital health, because, everything needed a buzzword, but I don't know, like these lines are melding. At the end of the day, the three of us here and the viewers and the listeners, we're human beings, and it's about our health, right? And well-being. And
I think that's the key. We talk about digital therapeutics. Really, is it? It's just a therapeutic. If you market it as a therapeutic, take the digital word out of it. It's just a new way of doing something, right? So why are we labeling it as a digital therapeutic? Because what that connotates to the pharma company or to the patient is this is something new and unique and different. And maybe I should be wary when it could be a great benefit. You don't know, right? You look at that FDA-approved contraception thing, which is an app and a temperature gauge in essence, really, right? You shouldn't call it a digital therapeutic. It's just one way for you to do contraception if you don't want to take a pill, right? It's healthcare. And the second piece I think we're missing, a lot of these healthcare things are failing because we're missing the human piece of it. We're really we're missing out on the care teams. We're missing out on the caretakers. We're missing out on the spouses, the nurses. We're saying to the patient, here, this will help you manage your health. And the patient goes, all right, I'm dying of cancer. You've given me this great thing. My nurse knows nothing about it. And she's telling me to do something completely different. Or nobody's telling me how to do it or live with it or whatever. So I think we need to start to figure out where does the human belong in this thing? How do we make sure the human interaction is there? And what value can we bring across that use case so that the product, just like any other product, is used properly in a way that will be meaningful? So that's the kick I'm on at the moment, is getting more humans involved in this digital healthcare world and not calling it, to your point, Eugene, digital health. It's just health.
Right.
It's managing your health. And there's a number of things you can do to manage your health, right?
yeah, I mean, I don't think that the term digital health will really even get to the masses, right?
Yeah.
It'll just become, and it's funny because I saw, I think Vishal Gulati's comment, something around like either digital therapeutics or digital health. Like he's like, if it brings the outcomes and it makes money, nobody's gonna care what it's called,
That's
right? Like, so.
Yeah, I feel like the insiders and the elite, which I'll put you guys in this category of Vishal, they've been trying to call the death of digital health for ages. Like I remember sitting with in California 8 years ago, and I was doing a digital health panel, and then one of the experts kind of like, Jim, give me a break. It's not digital health, it's just health, and I actually think so. I'm kind of a bull on the word digital health in the sense that we're going through this transformation. So it needs a name, it needs a code,
Absolutely.
A language, and in a way.
But it also needs to disappear, right? That's the point. And
yeah, it needs to disappear or evolve. Maybe instead of disappear,
fair.
Maybe, so meaning it's for me, it's kind of, it serves a really useful purpose, right? It's like, hey, this is a new kind of company. There's a new kind of tech,
Do you think it's more because we as human beings in general like to sort of label things no matter where we are, so it sort of enables us to get our head around it? rather than anything else. But then let me ask a question for you, Jim. So Apple Watch, as an example, it's a lifestyle thing, really. It happens to have these features that helps you manage your health, and they're getting better and better. I've been a naysayer of the thing that's on Eugene's wrist for about 2 years now.
Which one? No.
It's a toy. It's not clinical grade. It's not, I don't buy it, all of this stuff, but they're getting there. And people, I know a friend of mine just had open heart surgery. He was provided an AliveCor EKG by his cardiologist, but he just uses his watch. The AliveCor EKG is like my 16 Fitbits in the drawer, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we like labels, we like tribes. Like I think about like Eugene and I as buddies. We become friends. So we bond over this theme of digital health. So that makes us feel comfortable. I think we like labels. We like to do there, and then it's that balance. It's like, when does the label become enabling versus restrictive, right? So if I make it, like, I think, like, say my technology. We've reinvented a basic patient support tool called a SharpSpin, and made it a digital patient tool. I actually think I went too far ahead.
Really?
So meaning my tech, which is phenomenal, is it's not close enough to what the original tech watch was. So it's almost like too far of it. So I suffered.
So you need an evolution, not a revolution.
Exactly. So so even like my next iteration of my tech actually starts to look more like the original one, because
interesting.
So I agree with you. You like, by calling it, oh, this is a digital health tech, and then all of a sudden I'm stuck in MLR committees that I would have loved to avoid.
Right. I go tell
but
you
that's only roughly quarterly. So
well, it depends.
No, I know, I'm kidding.
First time I got into this, I remember my first meeting at a small company up in Indianapolis somewhere, and they said, we're going to meet the medical legal people, and everybody was very serious, and we had to give this past, and I was like expecting, very serious three people. There was three people, apparently, three serious people coming in with books and case law and, things to refer to and all of that stuff. And these two guys and a woman walk in. The woman's the doctor, the lead medical person, and the two guys are the legal guys. And we were presenting this website, and the standing. And then they said, wait, hold on. What does that say? Where does that lead to? And the guy turns to his friend and goes, what do you think? Do you think we could allow that? Oh, I don't know. What do you reckon? Yeah, maybe we could. What? Yeah, look, we've got another meeting. Yeah, let's just keep going. I left that meeting going, that was not medical legal that I know. I was expecting to say, you can't do that because the law says, on page 37. It didn't work out that way.
The last time we had a guest, not last week, but we had a guy named Jeff Berkowitz on, which I don't know if you know him, but so he was an attorney by trade, by background, and he went into pharma, and then he built this phenomenal career in pharmaceutical on the commercial side and the business side. But you could see that, his capacity to kind of use his legal skills throughout that and engender trust. It was obviously hugely enabling his career.
So, Jim, let me ask you, in what you're doing, do you think about when you started it, were you thinking about the tech? Or were you thinking about the patient and the things you could provide the patient that could be technically enabled?
Can I answer that question?
Yeah, go ahead.
For you, and then you correct me. So I actually remember the excitement of Jim Joyce. This was, I believe, at a Health 2.0 in London, where you came out with like these amazing graphic of the version 1.0 device. And I remember your words saying, how amazing will be the experience of that patient. It's very Apple-like, it's very usable, et cetera. So that's my 2 cents. But you can answer your way.
I mean, my feeling is I had implemented I'd run a patient services organization for a long time. And my feeling was that the only thing that mattered was the capacity for the patient to adopt it, the easing of the burden, removing complexity. It didn't have an app. It had one button on it. And I would say you had to accidentally implement it correctly. That was my philosophy, that if you by accident would implement it correctly. And so that was my thinking about it, because I saw so many products die on complexity and on, complexity for the clinician, complexity for, care teams in between, complexities for the patients, whoever that was, so that was my thinking.
But I think like as we all been in this digital health space, we've seen the market mature, and I think we even joked around. I think it was with Francesca that like now the suits are in, right? Like this is a real
it's
business,
no longer,
right?
That's right. It was
but the reason I bring this up as it matured, because there's something to be said of a tech push, right? There's this amazing thing. There's a sensor. There's this, whatever that might be, right? And it's actually that cross-disciplinary view of getting the patient view, getting the clinician view, and so, I mean, it's no longer enough to have a tech geek start something for digital health in their garage, whether it's in New Jersey, California, or Dublin, right? It's just not enough anymore. So
was it ever enough? Was it ever enough?
You could argue. So I agree with you for the scaling of it, but there was, I think, a time in the early days where just a lot of these ideas bubbling up, and then yes, but I think just.
But Ritesh, what are you thinking? What's your, take on that? Or
so I would agree with Eugene. I think early on, I used to meet a lot of developers, software companies. So when I got into the innovation piece of this a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I started saying that again, just like that Web 1.0, something's happening here. There's a lot of money starting to shift from consumer wearables and consumer-oriented devices that help me track my fitness or my diet into some clinical grade stuff. So something's afoot. So I started talking to people in California initially, in Silicon Valley, some guys I know in VCs out there. I said, am I right? Is there something going on? And then no, they're like, yeah. We're starting to fund a lot more of the upstream clinical digital health kind of companies. But when I met the founders, in most cases, they were tech guys, right? They had the first question, do you have a medical person on your staff, right? No, yep. Do we need one? The second question, then I knew we were in trouble. The second question was, do you know HIPAA? Do you know what that means, right? If they said no to that, then you knew you were in trouble. But I think nowadays, Eugene's right, more maturity in the market. Teams are being put together with medical people as advisors or on staff. In the last year, I've seen a lot more healthcare professionals leaving practice to start their own startups, or they've started it internally, like Amit Gear. Amit was the head of formulary and pharmacy for OSF. So he was running the thing, right? Came up with this idea of, we will deliver your prescription medicine to you within 2 hours. Yep. 50 states. Went out, did it, got OSF as the first client, put it together, and is now running it, right? And he's just launched it in the
There's
market.
Also, I just recently reconnected with Avi Mera, Doctorpreneurs, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you think about it, that whole movement of doctors, entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
And leaving, unfortunately, on one side, leaving the practice.
That's right.
Of medicine, on the other side, taking their clinical knowledge to improve that practice of medicine, right? So
I'm seeing a lot more people looking for technology partners now. Before it was the tech guy starting something, looking for a medical person. Now I'm seeing a lot more, hey, I get an email now and again, hey, I'm looking for a CTO. If you know anybody, I've got this startup I'm doing, and it's a doctor. So it's fascinating. Awesome. Fascinating.
We had a term on one of the podcasts where we self-declared ourselves health artists.
Oh, I like that. That's great. When did you declare that? I
that was that with memo. Gautam.
Was it?
That was with Gautam Gulati on the show, I think.
I missed that one. How is he, by the way? I haven't seen him in ages.
He's doing great, and he's got his own podcast. It is brilliant. I'm addicted to it. Okay. Superhumans. It's amazing. Very well produced.
Amazing. Yeah.
So I actually, Jim, have a question for Eugene, because as you know, among the three of us, he's the obvious superstar. He's always been out there. We've got somebody. When you went to a conference, everybody, Eugene. Oh wow! I'm like, I met him once.
I'm gonna start blushing, and it's not the scotch.
So you were G4A. You did all of this. You brought startups together. You did hackathons. You did all of this stuff, and there was a lot of buzz 3-4 years ago. What have you seen that's changed, in your view, based on what the experience you had with pharma, particularly, because that was an amazing experience and an amazing thing you put together, right?
Yeah, I mean, the very short version of it, back to this maturity level. And I think what I would like to define though here is it's a maturity level of a particular organization or a sub-organization of the big beast, right? Because that's a little bit what you said. So I think at a more global level, and we're seeing these changes happen all the time, right? Still to this day, it's like the pendulum is swinging. I mean, the reality is, and I, thank you for, being on the Ogilvy, right? The forecast or the predictions for 2021. I raised the question: does pharma need to change? Really, right? And I was being a little facetious, yes, right. But I think the short answer to you, while things have changed at a core of it and at a business model of it, things stayed the same so far.
Yeah. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, no, that's the question right now. So I think they now have a bigger role in society. They have the only global distribution of healthcare. I always thought that was unique about pharma. So if digital health ultimately gets standardized and rolled out globally, pharma has a massive role in that, as a coach, a supporter, a funder, a partner, or whatever that is. And so, but it's, to Eugene's point, they don't have to change. So it's kind of like, so, where does the impetus come from? Where does that?
And my challenge always is, and again, depending on the company and the size of it in their portfolio, they're still very, disease specific, right? And therapeutic specific. And, if we look at bring the human back, right? Lots of comorbidities. I saw some stats, I think 30, 40 million have in US alone have at least 2 diseases, right? So if I'm on one drug and from another company, and how does it work together? And that's why I still think pharma is not the right player to have the holistic, prevention, health management, and all of that. Just purely from that perspective.
What do you think?
We're going, like, I think this will be our longest episode, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I can keep going.
I got about 5 more minutes. If you want, we can keep going for 5 more minutes.
He wants to win. He wants to be the longest show. I mean, I don't mind.
Of course. Come on. I think we should go for it. So, Jim, and Eugene, to your point, I used to think, because I joined healthcare with a pharma lens, right? I joined healthcare working on pharma. When I joined Inventive, I joined working for pharma companies. It was Inventive had a CRO, we had marketing agencies, we owned GSW, Paleo, Ignite, we had Chandler Kiko public relations, we had the outsourced Salesforce business that outsourced all the Salesforce for pharma. So my lens was all pharma. In the last 3 years, I've got more and more involved with payers and hospitals. I do a lot of work with hospitals. And my world has shifted a little bit, because when you talk to the doctors and the clinicians in a hospital, in a cardiology center, pharma is number 8 on their list of important things.
Right.
I've got a patient. I've got to figure out how to make them live. Their wife is yelling at me, I've got a nurse to do. I've got to put notes in. I've got to, oh yeah, wait, let me give you a medication here. Right. So it's fascinating as you get involved in the ecosystem. That's when you figure out that humans are very important in this equation.
And on top of that, again, and I think even in pharma, like around the adherence concept, there was the conversation of behavior change. But again, if you loop this all back around, right, with the comorbidities, with the scenario that you just described in a hospital setting, how do as a patient you're leaving, how do I help myself first? And who helps me with how do I change my behaviors around all of this, right? And again, a pill is just a small piece of it.
That's right. What do you think, Jim? I think
well, so the challenge is, I think the challenge is adoption, right? Like, so I think we know, we've got a system that's clumsy and stuck in its ways for good reasons, that you want to be careful and cautious, and so the challenge is adoption. So so who's adopting, and how's that, and how does that get, where does it seep in, and who has the incentives to put it in place the fastest, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
But when I introduce myself, one of the things I say to clients is, look, I have when I talk, just bear in mind I have a very narrow lens, and my view is if it moves, digitize it, right? So it's heresy for the digital guy who digitizes everything to start talking about the human equation. And the reason I say that, and I use AliveCor as a prime example. AliveCor firmly believes as a company that they don't have a brand issue. They have a supply, a buying issue. They need more people to buy their product. And I keep telling them they have a brand issue.
Right.
People in California may know AliveCor, but the further away you go from the core, nobody really knows AliveCor or KardioMobile. When I show it to people, they go, "Oh my God, that's amazing. Where'd you get that?" Right? Number one. Number two, the sales model is direct to consumer because they firmly believe that you will buy it for $189.
Right.
There's 31 million people in the US alone that have AFib.
Yeah.
So your customer base,
but
31
but
million
not
people,
anymore.
right?
They just announced that JPM, they're going towards employers per employee per month.
There you go,
There you go.
right? That's the reason. Because after 8 years of trying to sell it directly to Eugene, they figured out that Eugene's not the buyer.
Actually, I bought pretty much all of them.
Yeah,
this
but-
just fell out, but
but
I
you're the
lost.
Digerati.
But yeah.
I need some
Right.
free marketing advice here then. So okay, so I believe that 100%. Like, so when I think about that, when you want volunteers, you go to the church, right?
Yeah,
You go
exactly.
to where the volunteers are.
Exactly.
You don't fight. And so growing up in pharmaceutical industry, you go to your KOLs, you go to the person that can prescribe 5,000
That's right.
prescriptions versus trying to convince one person to buy.
That's right.
And then more recently I'm feeling that the consumer movement and the capacity with so I'm thinking about this omni-channel model, right? The way we've brought our product to the market is we've brought it through pharmaceutical companies adopting it through patient services programs,
Right.
repackaging it so a clinician could prescribe it.
Right.
And that's been my thesis and my ethos. But very recently, I've been convinced there's a consumer play within our product.
Interesting. I love to. I'm going to watch very, very carefully. And if you need any help, call me.
I was gonna say that's why he brought it up, not because he wants you to sit there and watch.
I'll be delighted to help you, Jim, and give me a shout, and we'll be happy to help in any way.
So by the way, this is officially the longest episode. I think.
We've done longer.
No, this is we have not gone over 58 minutes, which we have now.
We didn't even cover music.
I know.
It's so much more.
Well,
I mean, we could pull a Tim Ferriss and go for an hour and a half too. I don't know. You want to clear your schedule?
Well, let me just check what is on my diary next, and then we'll be able to make that decision fairly quickly. I know that I had something I had to do after this. Unfortunately, I do.
No. We're just busting. We want to.
We can always do it again, or I can, just a big plug. I'll be on jfsr.co.uk at 9 p.m. this evening, Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to tune in and listen to me spin live, I'll be on the radio. So
you're
awesome.
spinning live, and then you do a Sunday spin or something as well?
Sunday is live as well. Both are live, but the Sunday one then gets, so the Sunday one I've been doing for 5 years. So the Sunday one gets distributed across podcasts and websites and SoundCloud and Mixcloud all over the place. Awesome. The one I do tonight, it's a 10-year-old internet radio show, radio company in the UK called Jazz Funk Soul Radio. So jfsr.co.uk, and that's 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Time.
So here's one of the closing questions. So I started this thing that when I arrive in my house at night, I take Spotify and I play an entrance song as I walk in late for dinner, as I walk into the thing. So I have a playlist called Entrance,
No way, really?
Yeah. So I hit the Spotify and they're coming in. So I have so I've got my entrance music. Like Who Let the Dog Out? I want to.
No way.
I want to.
I love it.
Get jiggy with it. I've got the list. I've got the, so you can tell what kind of mood I'm in as I'm walking in the door. So you gotta give me a suggestion at some stage. Oh, mute.
Ritesh went on mute. He doesn't want to give you any suggestions. No, I think somebody was calling him. But Jim, while he's getting off mute, you should share that list, or I'm going to try to follow it.
Yeah.
I'll find your list on Spotify.
This is the exit song.
Oh. Perfect.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Love it. That's the exit song.
That is the exit. Longest episode ever. Amazing. Thank you, Ritesh. And for the listeners and viewers, hit that subscribe button. Keep spreading.
Yes, please subscribe. Eugene and Jim need the subscriptions. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. I could have spent another hour talking to you guys. I really
Cheerios.
Humble and sincere appreciation. Stay in touch. Eugene, I know we'll stay in touch. Jim, anything you need, get in touch.
Keep it human.
Thank you.
Keep it human. That's right.
Take care, guys. See ya.